Hey, Talent Warriors, welcome to another episode of the Talent War Podcast. Today, stand by, short segment about the 5 biggest trends that we see going on with talent, business, and with HR. So stand by for the latest and greatest. Hey, Talent Warriors, welcome back to the 5 biggest trends in 2022 that we're seeing here at the Talent War Group. And we're going to do just a short segment. Every once in a while, we like to do these short segments and bring you up to speed on what we're thinking, what we're seeing, what we're doing. And no surprise, the number one trend going on is the Great Resignation. Now, as much as it comes with the Great Regret, latest data tells us that the percentage of people who said they're going to stay in their current roles has dropped from 70% last year to 65% this year. That's a little bit worrisome. You know, it seems to run counterintuitive about, with the Great Resignation. And a lot of people are having trouble finding great talent, especially in the service industries. And we've been helping a lot of top companies find great senior leaders and talent. But it goes to show you really one of the emphasis that we drive home, or an emphasis that we make to all of the executives that we talk to and companies that we talk to, is that even though you improve your hiring processes, the number one thing that you can do right now is double down on leadership. Are you training your frontline, mid-level, and top leaders how to better invest in your people through coaching, mentoring, training? Are you doing the things necessary to build the culture that give people what they want? That sense of ownership, autonomy, growth, learning, the ability to impact. Are your leaders facilitating those things? As I've said many times, with the post-pandemic, the pandemic, and the Great Resignation, it is the era of the CHRO. Your HR and your talent acquisition teams are the front line as you fight the war for talent. Like any essential component, they need to be fortified, trained, and supported. Talent War Group's talent acquisition and HR consulting development service helps your organization learn to attract and retain top talent and help you gain an advantage against your competitors. Our current job market, like I said, is the Great Resignation. And now, the Great Attrition is what you're seeing, and many other names due to the record number of workers quitting their jobs. 52% of the employees are currently looking for a new job. So let us help you get it right, know what the best talent looks like, attract the best talent, and help your company thrive. The Talent War Group brings a unique set of skills to help you take your business to the next level. You can get started by finding us at talentwargroup.com and let us help you develop your next generation of leaders. Now, as much as there is the Great Regret out there, and we're going to do an episode on that, the fact that only 65% of the workforce surveyed says they intend to stay with their same employer is just a 5-alarm fire to employers who were pushed, to deliver results to their clients, to their customers, to their shareholders, that leadership is everything. It's not your product. It's not your service. It's not any one of your departments. It's the ecosystem and how it works together and the leadership that drives that culture forward to deliver results. A lot of companies that we talk to are seeing very alarming rates of attrition, and it's voluntary attrition. Now that, when we talk about attrition, we are not talking about involuntary, the people where you've had to reduce your workforce or you've had to drop a certain department or realign your company. No, we're talking about people who leave voluntarily for another opportunity. It's the number one talking point, the thing that we see, whether we're taking polls on LinkedIn, whether we're talking to our clients, we're keeping up with the latest news and trends through a number of HR and business publications, is that this Great Resignation is going to continue. Really what it is for me is not just a call for companies or to advise companies to double down on leadership. It's re-emphasizing the point that leadership always matters. It is the one difference maker. My last vice president job with this company, there were always more tools that we wanted. There was always more marketing or advertising. There were always new processes. There were always things that we wanted to add to the budget, be that headcount or software tools, new marketing campaigns, new laptops, new monitors, all kinds of things that we really could have added to the operating expense of the company. But one of the great reasons for our team's success is we realized that leadership at every level, down to the individual contributor, I think it was Jocko Willink that said, we start by leading ourselves, and really codified that in Extreme Ownership and Dichotomy of Leadership. And it's absolutely brilliant and spot on. But having the basics and good leadership means that even if we didn't have the most up-to-date software, the best laptop, if some of our tools and our intranet wasn't the best, that leadership, the communication, the collaboration, the focus, the direction, the mission, making it clear, defining success, those things mattered. And we managed to have the highest retention rate of any department. And I give all the credit to my subordinate leaders who understood that teamwork, ownership, and humility were the cornerstones of what we were trying to build. So as the headline remains with us, the Great Resignation, and 65% of workers saying they are going to stay in their jobs, leaving 35% open, it's really time to be looking at your leadership and looking at your culture. And the Talent Work Group certainly can help with that. Got to put that plug in for us. But it's always time to look at leadership. The stronger you make your leadership team, your leadership training, all of your coaching and mentorship and career management, talent management processes and ecosystem, the better off you're going to be to ride through these up and down cycles of the economy. Second headline today, hybrid work is here to stay. And in my speeches that I give, there's always a Q&A session. And people worry about fairness. People worry about, should people be work from home? Should they have a flex schedule? Should they be in the office? And, even with all my experience in the field, the answer is always the same. It depends. But I do want to reiterate, and I don't know how many times I've said it, but I hope it sinks into some frontal lobes of leaders that before COVID, that was our normal. And I hear a lot of executives that we speak with saying, now we're going to return to normal. No, you're actually not. When we went to more of a work from home, and we went to maybe flex and the social distancing, the masking, all of those things, what people had to do was rewire their whole lives. Now they didn't have the commute. Now they had to set up a home office. Now they had to figure out, were their children being homeschooled? How do I attend to that? It's right next to my workspace, or possibly sharing the workspace. And so over the course of the pandemic and post-pandemic, we created a new normal and we got used to it. So for those folks out there who think, we're going to return to normal or we're going to come back to the office, now you're unwinding what people have built and asking them to change yet again within a 24, 36-month period. And that's very, very difficult. So when people ask me about hybrid work, and I say that it depends, it means your HR team, your human capital team, and your leaders should get together and take a really, really hard look about what your mission is. Look at your facilities, look at your people, look at all the departments, and understand one size doesn't fit all. And it's about leading and looking at the totality of your workforce and going team by team and asking yourself, how do we get the best results out of this team? Does that necessarily mean that they need to be at home to get the best results? Do they need to be in the office? Can they be both? You have to systematically go through your entire workforce and say, hey, these are the restrictions, the challenges, the opportunities. These are the environmental conditions that we're dealing with. But at the end of the day, we still have to deliver results. So how do we best do that with the talent that we have, the leadership, the management structure that we have? Most companies these days have really good technology, and people can work from home, and all of the video conferencing, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, whatever it is you're using, certainly allow for you to maintain 75, 80% of the connectivity that you have in the office. I mean, I'm one of those people. I've been coming to the office even through COVID. And I love the drive-by. I like the breaking bread. I like the impromptu discussions, or to be able to have a quick chat with somebody versus doing it over Teams or some form of instant messaging or phone text. I do like that being together. That said, it's not a requirement for me to produce results. And many of the people on our team here at the Talent War Group, it's not a requirement for them to produce results. So we have to look at what our mission is, what results we expect, the environmental constraints, and the challenges that we have. And we go person by person, and I share the same advice with companies. How do you look at your workforce, and how do you deliver results? It isn't one size fits all. And if your leadership is fearful of losing control, you've got an entirely different problem that you have to solve. Because if those leaders are fearful of losing control and not being able to manage or lead in a remote or flex environment, your problem's not the environment. Your problem is the leader. And going back to the first point, it's why we're doubling down on leadership training, leadership workshops here at the Talent War Group with companies. There are a lot of old school thinkers out there like, I want to see them working. Well, if you have to see them working, then you have a trust issue, which means you have a deeper issue in your relationship with the people that you lead. Now, there are certainly people out there who, they absolutely are going to take advantage of the situation. But there's nothing worse than managing to the exceptions or managing to the worst case. You should be managing and leading to the results. And folks, we're here to tell you, the hybrid work is absolutely here to stay. There are a lot of people that want to come back into the office. There's a lot of people that don't want to, are getting far more work done. I know at my previous firm, easily 90 to 120 minutes a day that I would lose in productivity on a commute. Now, my personal thing was I would put one-to-ones and do phone calls while I was in the car. But generally, people lose the full productivity. They can't answer emails. They can't work on slides. They can't work on a project. They can't do coding. They can't do programming. They can't interface with clients while they're trying to pay attention during an hour, hour and a half, 2 hour, and in some cities, 3-hour commutes. So hybrid work is here to stay. This episode is sponsored by Talent War Group, a management consulting and executive search firm. We help you attract, retain, and develop your top talent because we know that the most valuable asset within your organization is your talent. With services like leadership development, talent acquisition and HR consulting, executive search, executive coaching, and keynote speeches, we work with you to create talent solutions to your most pressing business problems. You can get started by finding us at talentwargroup.com and let us help you develop your next generation of leaders. Also, if you like what we're doing here at the podcast, please leave a review as it helps us support and continue this podcast. It helps us support people who are really dedicated to improving their business skills and excelling above all else. The next big trend, this has been interesting for me to be a part of it because I certainly am part of the baby boomer. I'm right on the cusp. But diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, this will continue among companies to see the greater and greater push of companies to make stronger and stronger efforts to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And interestingly enough, the employees expect really, really progress. But there's this interesting statistic that came out. Qualtrics, who does a ton of surveys, and they have some amazing products. I've used them for client experience, customer satisfaction, internal engagement. Happen to love their product, not plugging it, just happen to use it and love it. Their recent survey says that 70% of employees have made sufficient progress. But interestingly enough, there's a perception gap. 80% of business leaders believe their actions show they're generally committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But only 58% of the individual contributors see the same. And I was trying to make sense of that statistic. I don't think it's leaders inflating what they're doing. I don't think it's leaders inflating their egos. I do think it's a perception issue. And, we've long held, when we talk about leadership and we talk about specifically diversity and inclusion, if everybody's thinking alike, nobody's thinking. So diversity of thought leadership is really what you're looking for in our view. People with different experiences, different backgrounds of all sorts. And that comes in many shapes, sizes, forms, background. There's so many different ways you can divide that and categorize that. But the more diversity in thought that you get, the better ideas you become. And if you're a great leader that operates under the best idea wins, diversity is something that you should look forward to. And diversity is not quotas. Inclusion and equity is not quotas. And those people who are just over-rotating on the issue, you're doing more harm than you are good. But it really comes down to leadership again. As it's been said by somebody much brighter than me, every problem is a leadership problem. But diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are here to stay. And all leaders need to be aware of that. They need to be participants in that. They need to be influencing that. And they need to be driving the construction of their teams and their collaborative circles, work teams, to represent as much diversity of thought as they possibly can. Now, on the flip side, because we certainly call it straight, culture's not built in a day. Culture's not destroyed in a day. And those companies that are homogenous or lacking diversity, and you're an employee of those companies, you have to be patient because change takes time. You can't just, plug in a diversity and equity program and expect within the next quarter that you're going to be seeing the most amazing results. It takes time. And so those people that are focused on them, give them the time to implement those programs, to drive those programs and processes through, and be patient. It's important that when your company says, this is our mission and here's the things we're doing, to follow through, to allow those things to mature, to improve, to change, and to make a lasting impact. It was one of the things that I found as a leader. And again, I don't think it's a generational thing. I think it's more towards technology, is that our patience level has dropped generally. With information, we want instant information, even if it's not accurate. We just want the latest opinion on it. We stomp our foot in front of the microwave because it's not reheating something fast enough. There are plenty of people that I would watch before the timer went off on the microwave, even in the office workspace, where they would stop it. So I think our patience for change needs to come up, and our perspective as individual contributors and leaders needs to be much more broad, much more over the horizon. And great leaders, great individual contributors, great talent, keeps one eye on the horizon and another eye on the tactical, right there on the ground, right beneath their feet. And make sure you're moving the needle. But make no mistake, the diversity, equity, inclusion, those things are really here to stay. And they're maturing and they're getting better. And people are learning how they impact in good ways and in bad ways, and they're course correcting. The last interesting two trends. One is that open communication and manageable workloads can help employee well-being. And I think this kind of goes back to the hybrid work. As leaders, you need to be much more cognizant of your employees' well-being. And by no means am I what people would pejoratively refer to as a snowflake. But people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That doesn't mean giving somebody a blanket and a warm hug. What it means is, as an employee, do you believe your leader cares about your development, your performance, and your growth? So more communication, looking at the workloads, making sure that you're looking out for your employees, what their capacity is, what their bandwidth is, especially in times where you might be behind on the hiring curve, that people are trying to, double and triple up their workloads. And really great talent, this is a very common problem for leaders that you have to be mindful of. As the old saying is, you could ride a good horse to death, And it's very easy to see things getting done and you managing the workload and all the things that you have to get done with a smaller workforce. But leaders out there are going to have to learn to say no or push things off to make sure that their employees are taken care of. Because one of the very, very tough things for a talented person is to set up boundaries and to say no to people. It's one of the things that I would coach my leaders and my team on is if you ever say yes to me for a request or a task, a mission, I assume that you've looked at your capacity, your bandwidth, and your ability to accomplish that mission. And if you tell me yes, and it might be as simple as a meeting invite for a certain day, and you've got 20 meetings that day, and you're going to find a way to squeeze it in. I, as a leader, I take that as you're ready to go. You can do it. You have the capacity to do it. So I had to start teaching my teams to set boundaries and to say no, and to say, you know what, George, I can do that for you, but I can't get to it the next week with the priorities that you gave me. Does this supersede what you've already given me, or can I push this out a week? As an employee, as an individual contributor, and you saying yes to everything doesn't make you more valuable. It really dilutes all the other things that you're doing. So when you say yes to things, make sure that you can do them. And as managers, be mindful that your employees may not have those communication skills to negotiate back with you and share with you. They may take it as a sign. Well, they just may not want to admit that their plate is full. So again, as a leader in this environment where workloads are doubling and tripling, you really do have to pay close attention to what's on the plates of your top talent. Those are the last people to say no, and you don't want to be burning them out. You're going to put yourself in a much worse position. But more importantly, you want to teach them how to be a great leader. You want to set that example. You want to show them, hey, I'm checking in with you. How full is your plate? I think you're doing great work. You're delivering some great things, but I'm seeing you getting stretched. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we can mitigate that a little bit. So employee well-being is something we need to really be paying attention to when there's the great resignation, when there's a talent shortage. And the surprising last trend that we see, and the last topic for today, is that performance reviews are a must. And it kind of goes back to the earlier point of communication. As a good leader, and we're not saying that annual reviews are here to stay. We're not here to say semi-annual reviews are here to stay. But employees want to know how they're doing. They want that check-in. And as part of managing their workloads, checking in on them, showing as a leader that you care about their development, their growth, their performance, their success, check in with them. Do one-to-ones. Performance reviews, people want to know how they're doing. And don't sandwich them by, well, this is good, this is bad, and then ended up with something good. The praise sandwich is what we call it. Make sure you're giving them honest feedback. Hey, I think these things you're doing well. Here's where I see you struggling. How can I help you? Because here's where the standard needs to be. Everybody wants to know how they're doing. And when you deliver that feedback, if you're a good leader and they know that you care about their development, they'll take that as developmental feedback, as course correction. So just because we're short on talent, because we have the great resignation, please don't think that performance reviews are out the window, that this is about pleasing people. It's still about great leadership. It's about communication, open communication, course correction. In the environments that I was in, I learned very early to be asking for feedback. Hey, tell me how this is. I've given hundreds of speeches. My co-author, Mike Sorelli, he's got to be in the thousands of speeches. And both of us still to this day, when we're done with the speech, we're sending it to the clients. Hey, what do you want to see that we could have done better? How can we improve? How could this have been more impactful? We want that feedback. But we know that that's important to our development. A lot of employees are not going to step up and ask. Some will, some won't. But if you're a leader, you want to make sure that all of your folks are getting the appropriate feedback. So that's it for today, folks. The top trends: double down on leadership because people are searching for jobs. Be flexible in how you approach your workforce because hybrid is here to stay. Look at your teams and deliver. Focus on results first. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is here to stay. How do we make our workforce better? And then performance reviews and open communication. They're still one of the best ways to build and invest in your talent. And with that, I hope you have a great week. Thank you for turning in to the Talent War podcast. We'll talk to you soon. And thank you for listening to the Talent War podcast, where we discuss all things talent. focusing on a talent mindset, the core belief that the only true competitive advantage you can hope to achieve and maintain is your talent. Join us for the next episode of the Talent War podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you heard, subscribe and please leave a review. Connect with me on Talent War Group's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram accounts and send your comments and inquiries to media@talentwargroup.com. The Talent War podcast is brought to you by the Talent War Group, a management, consulting, and executive search firm. We work with you, bringing services like talent acquisition, leadership development, executive search, executive coaching, seminars, speaking engagements, all to create talent solutions for your most pressing business problems. To get started, visit us at www.talentwargroup.com.